And you're live, that's true too.
What's that? Yeah. Andrew won't start it live until 7.
Oh, that's Andrew down there. I thought I recognized him and then, yeah. He's a mask, you know.
I know.
Need your gavel down there? This time I'd like to call to order the Ravenna City Planning Commission meeting for July 7th, 2020, 7 o'clock. A little bit differently for the Planning Commission. All of our members are here. One who was unable to previous commitment before we scheduled this meeting. Who would you like to call the roll, please?
Frank Freeman,
Here.
David Anthony,
Here.
Anthony Marmer, Scott Smith,
Here.
Billy Barber,
Here.
Mary Selenius,
Here.
Mark Harrison,
Here.
Scott Green,
Here, I'm sorry, here, I'm sorry. Thought you said Bethany.
Okay, you did receive the minutes. Okay. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? There are none, we have a motion to approve the minutes. So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. The new business on the agenda tonight is the Menards project, 154 State Route 88.
The Menards project on 7154 State Route 88. The zoning district is industrial. They're requesting a site plan approval for the new Menards development. So this is our first opportunity to listen to what is planned out there. We normally begin these sessions, Nick, with you giving us a general statement of things that you're attempting to do there. And then I'll refer to Mr. Finney to get us started off. And there will be some questions. I know this is a big project and the city is very eager for you to be successful. But we will have some questions with the project. So would you go ahead and do a brief introduction to what we need to do for you tonight?
Yeah, sounds good. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So my name is Nick Brenner. I'm a real estate representative with Menards. Address for the record is 5101 Menard Drive, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 54703. Appreciate you guys having me here tonight. It's the first time I've done a project like this through virtual means. Usually I have about 3 or 4 meetings by now in this stage of a project, within the city and getting to know you guys a little bit better. So this is definitely a unique situation for me, as I'm sure it is with you guys as well. But I'm sure most of you have heard about our project. It's been in the media a little bit over the last month or so as we've worked through our approvals for this project. But what we are proposing at this location is what we call our mini manufacturing and distribution center. What we are looking to do at this particular property is have some manufacturing and distribution components. The manufacturing components is going to be a truss plant, a concrete block manufacturing plant, a wood recycling plant, along with a bagging facility where we bang concrete mix and sand and other means like that. Distribution, we'll have a distribution cross dock, and we'll also have a lumber transload, which is why we need the rail. We bring in the lumber on rail, transload it on, and it heads out to our stores. So the reason we are looking in Northeast Ohio here for this particular site is because our footprint in Northeast Ohio is growing. 3 or 4 years ago, we had 1 or 2 stores in this region. In the last 3 or 4 years, we've added 1 in Cuyahoga Falls, we've added 1 in Kent, we've added 3 up into Cleveland, and we're looking to add a handful more here in Northeast Ohio to supplement what we have already. We're also trying to make a push into Western Pennsylvania, and this facility will also serve those stores as well. So when we look to open this thing up, we are looking at about servicing somewhere between 15 to 18 stores. When this thing gets fully up and operational, we have all the stores built out in this region. We are looking somewhere between 30 to 35 stores. So what we have for hiring and investment and what we are planning for today really is centered around those 18, 20 stores. And as we continue to grow as a company, you'll see those jobs increase and things like that. So it only gets better from the start here. But we have to start somewhere, so we usually start a little bit smaller and we grow over time. So this site here, I don't have, usually I point on a map of which building is which and kind of run you through the site. Maybe at this point, if there's more specific questions about the site and how we are operating this, you can give me a little bit better direction on which portion of the site that you are, and I can definitely explain what we are proposing in each location. I guess I'll just end on this. This is, as I said, our mini manufacturing facility. Menards has a regional in Holiday City, Ohio. We have more manufacturing plants up there than what's being proposed here, such as we have a pre-hung door manufacturing plant, steel roofing and siding, a treated wood plant. And then down in Fayette County in Jeffersonville, we are actually under construction right now on a 150-acre manufacturing and distribution site, very similar to this one. But that one will have a treated wood plant as well, where we're not proposing to do this at this time here in Ravenna. Usually 75 acres is what we need to fit a site like this on here. We're doing it on just over 60 acres here. So everything is compact, but we are getting it to work. Engineering's been a little bit challenged, but we're making it work and pushing through. And with help from the city and everyone involved so far right now, we are looking at a successful project. So with that, I'll turn it over and answer any specific questions you may have.
Bob, with the introduction that you've accomplished with this up to this point, start us up. And those of you that are here, if at any point you want to get up and look at this map, feel free to get up.
Yeah, the biggest hurdle so far has been the drainage. Our ordinances, along with the state ordinances, mandate a certain retention of the stormwater runoff. And those 2 books on your desk explain and go through all the charts, figures, graphs of all the different ponds. We've reviewed those. They do meet the criteria, our criteria, the state's criteria. There's the rail that comes through, which is something that we haven't seen rail built in I don't know how many years, 50 plus years in this area. So, that's an interesting component to the project. They have the parking lot separated from truck parking to their workers parking. So the trucks and vehicles will enter and exit different parking lots. They've lined up the aprons to match the school's aprons for future, if a traffic signal would ever be needed. Those are a couple items that I felt positive about. That was my request that they came through with. Majority of the surface is going to be concrete. If you can see the kind of the shadowed areas, that's going to be the gravel area. and the gravel areas where they'll store their block and brick and, you know, that sort of the raw materials and finished products. There's another component that city council will have to approve, which is the riparian setback for this project to be approved as submitted. And that would be in the lower corner where the blue highlighter is. I can explain that more later if you would like.
Okay. Bill, you made a trip out through there. You have some questions or comments that you'd like to make after touring the acreage out there?
Yeah, actually, I have both questions and comments. So thanks very much for joining us tonight. We appreciate that. I had the opportunity to walk around the site a little bit. So I got a sense on how much grading you're going to have to do and that type of stuff. You mentioned something just a few minutes ago, though, that typically you go to, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly. Yep.
You had mentioned that typically the sites are 75 acres and this one is down to 60. So that just brought up a question. What's the main challenge or the big difference you're going to have between those two? And how is that going to affect your operations?
Well, I think you nailed it right on the head. The biggest challenge so far has been grading. Typically when we have 75 acres, we have room to grade and have 3-to-1 slopes, 2% slopes in the storage yards, which is what we'd like to have our forklifts operate on. This site here, we have walls all over the place. And it's a added cost that we're not used to. But we want to be here in the city. We like this property. We're willing to take that on. But absolutely, it's by far been the grading that has been the biggest challenge going from a site that's 13 acres less. Especially here when we have our roadway is set in on one side of the site, the rail sets it on another, and the existing building sets it on the other one. So when we have 2% slope from the existing building, which is going to be our truss plant, down to the new building, we can only have 2%. So that essentially sets that floor for that concrete plant and the distribution cross dock. And we have walls next to both retention ponds, and we've tried to limit those as much as we can. But in all honesty, there's quite a bit of them. Not looking at much more than anywhere from 5 to 10 feet, but they're pretty decent long runs as well.
With respect to the school, I just heard Bob mentioned having the aprons lined up. What type of criteria do you use to say, I think we need to have a light here? Or is that something somebody else will bring up? And I guess the other question is how are you taking a look at the traffic pattern when school's getting started and school's emptying out? Is there any change in your traffic pattern for trucks coming out, going in?
Well, yeah, so there's a couple things. One is we usually look for the jurisdictional authority on the roadway to kind of dictate what we need to do. These are, when I say distribution center, it's not heavy on trucks. We're looking, 25, 30 trucks a day. It's not like, what you'll see at the new, TJ Maxx Center up in Lordstown, where they're going to have just tons and tons of trucks coming because that's a full-fledged distribution center. And it's not like what you see up in Holiday City, where that's our regional distribution center. A lot less truck traffic here than what you would associate with the distribution. And that's because that's only one small part of the operation. A lot of it's manufacturing. So in terms of looking at the school, I guess one of the good news is when school's in session, actually our busy season's over by then. Our busy season is in the springtime and in the summertime. That's when you're going to see the most truck traffic. So there'll be a little bit of overlap there in the springtime while they're still in school session. But most of the time it's going to work out great that their busy season is going to be a little bit different than our busy season. And I think that will help the traffic on that road as well.
Just with respect to the train track coming in,
Yep.
What do you guys anticipate in terms of trains? I mean, is it 1 car a week? Is it 1 car a day, 10 cars a day? I mean, what's your general sense on what that's going to be?
To put it in an annual perspective, and I'll break it down from there. So we are looking at the start of this project about 200, 250 cars per year. So not a large amount by any means. That equates really to about 4 or 5 cars a week. And it's going to get a little bit busier in the springtime. Like I said, when we get busier, we'll probably have a few more in. But typically we're doing 2, maybe 3 switches a week. So nothing heavy on the rail side of things. All the cars that get spot, whether it's 4 or 5 cars at a time, they're going to remain on the Menards property. They're not going to be left on the main line. It's not going to block the bike path. It's going to be maintained in our yard because what we want is we want to unload those as quickly as we possibly can. So once those get staged on our yard, the employees working in the reload will take forklifts and unload that as soon as they can, and we'll get those off the site. So not a large amount by any means, but a decent amount.
Okay, great. That's all I got right now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Nick, Menards currently has rail in this fashion. They're utilizing rail. So is this a new venture for Menards, or do you have rail providing service to you?
Are you talking other facilities?
Yes.
Yes. So almost every single one of our facilities has rail access. There are certain sites, which we call our split sites, that are just distribution components. Those won't have rail, but there's only 3 sites that don't have rail out of probably the 16 or 17 that we do operate. But anytime that there's a truss plant, a lumber transload, we have rail coming in that facility. So this is the first venture we have on the Wheeling and Lake Erie. They've been great so far. I give them a lot of credit for making this project happen so far. But we have rail on the Burlington Northern, CSX, Norfolk Southern, the Union Pacific, and a number of short lines throughout the Midwest. So this is definitely not something new for our operations.
You mentioned earlier that you don't foresee a large amount of traffic, truck traffic, whatever. But this is just a regular 2-lane country road, per se. Do you see any need for upgrades or expanding of the road surface?
I don't, honestly. I think, we are in sites that are a lot more rural than this, and those roads handle us well. For instance, on Iron Ridge, Wisconsin, we have a very similar site to this, and you are going miles on 2-lane country roads before you get to the interstate. This is here, most of the truck traffic, I would imagine, is going to head south and then take a right and then head north up to the interstate, or hop on the road heading south here and get on 76. So I think in terms of, traffic on this road, I don't see it being a major issue. And that's just based off experience that we have on these sites that, other roads very similar to this can handle the traffic that we anticipate for the site.
Thank you.
Nick, will you have the flexibility to adjust the truck traffic if needed when the school is letting out? You're talking 16, 17-year-old drivers that want to get off the property as soon as possible. And it only lasts maybe 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're not going to force any issues or force anything that is unsafe. So our site manager is going to be very active. He's going to know the area. He's going to know the traffic patterns. If there is a 15-minute period, even 20-minute period or more, that he realizes is not a good time to send out his trucks, yes, he can help control that and make sure that they are traveling and they're leaving the site in the most opportune times.
What are the hours of operation that you're looking at in a site like this?
Yeah, good question. So we operate 2 shifts usually on these properties. For sure, during the busy seasons, we may scale down a little bit in the wintertime and the fall time. But in our busiest seasons, the earliest people will be there probably 6 o'clock in the morning. The latest they're going to stay is probably 10, maybe 11 o'clock at night. But I want to condition that on that most of the activity that happens early in the morning and late at night, before it gets completely light out, is going to be done inside the buildings. Not a lot of trucks aren't going to get loaded in the dark or late at night. We put buildings up around our truss plants and our concrete plants and everything so that it's lighted and it's safe and it contains all the sounds and noises produced by these operations. So it seems like a big window of operations, but from the outside perspective, it's going to seem much less than that.
Does it operate 7 days a week?
Does it operate 7 days a week? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's going to operate 5 days a week. Again, in the busy season, beginning of springtime, once we start getting that break in weather, yes, we might ramp it up to 6, maybe 7 days a week, but that's really only a handful of weekends a year.
We had some discussion early on, Nick. And I don't know what your situation is with this now because I haven't heard much about it. But you talked about needing well water. Is that still the case with this?
Yes, that is still something that we are requesting. You know, and I believe we came up with a solution to allow that to happen. You can tell me if I'm incorrect on that one. But yeah, we will still look for well water strictly for our concrete manufacturing plant. And it's not necessarily because of the fact that we use a lot of it. It is the fact that it is it's untreated. And whenever we get treated materials and chemicals in that water, what it does is if it impacts the colorization of our brick and our block, and that causes issues with customer satisfaction. So it is something that we desire immensely to be able to use well water, just because it helps keep our colorization consistent throughout the concrete blocks. And once you get one bad batch, you know, it messes up everything. So.
Is that you recycle that water, don't you? You reuse it?
Correct. Yep. The only water that's leaving this site will be potable. So bathrooms, sinks, break room, things like that. The water used for the manufacturing for the concrete block, if there is any that is in excess, will be recycled and put back into the manufacturing process.
Yes, please, go ahead. Yes. Any of you that have questions, speak up, please.
You already control all the real estate you're gonna need for this project?
I had a little trouble hearing that, so I'm going to repeat the question. I think it was, do we have ownership of all the property? Was that correct?
I use the word control, option.
Control. Okay. We do not own the property yet. We have purchase agreements for all 4 parcels, all 4 different ownerships. Our contract dates now, we're looking at about the beginning of September to essentially make a decision on this site and move forward with it. So we do have valid purchase agreements. So if we decide to move forward, absolutely, we are able to do that.
Any other questions at this point? We're talking about a preliminary site approval. Bob, what else do we need to cover here that we've missed?
One of the last obstacles for the Menards project to move forward is City Council has to approve the plan which they're disturbing the riparian setback. They're building in the riparian setback a small distance, and you can see from the big map, it's a little easier to explain looking at the big map, but part of our ordinance specifically states this is ordinance 1054.16, variances within the riparian and wetland setback. The City of Ravenna Council, upon recommendation from the city engineer, may grant a variance from this regulation as approved herein. In determining whether there is an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty such as to justify the granting of a variance, City Council may, under the potential harm or reduction of riparian or wetland areas function that may be caused by a proposed structure or use. Variances should not be granted for asphalt or concrete paving in the riparian or wetland setbacks in any situation where gravel or porous pavement will do the job. And what they're proposing is probably 95% of the disturbed area will be a graveled surface. So that'll be City Council's authority to grant this particular variance. Without this couple acres, is it 2 acres or 5 acres, Nick, this area?
Well, the entire property on that side of the stream is 5 acres. I mean, we're talking
It's about,
maybe half acre to an acre in the riparian setback.
I think it's about 1 acre. So that's the one. The only component, so basically it's within this blue line, and there's a smidgen here of this yellow and this yellow. This is all gravel. This little piece here is concrete, and that's the weight of the trucks, and they'll back them up and just store them in here. And there's a little small area here too. So that's one area that the city council is gonna would have to grant the variance for the project to move forward. Without that, I don't believe they would move forward.
Well,
with this.
I think the intention is to present that at committee this coming.
Yes, we're gonna start that process Monday night.
Monday night.
Correct.
With that. And we have talked with council about it, and they're quite willing to hear it. With that.
Then there's 2 other items that typically comes once approval is granted. And that's a notice of intent to disturb more than 1 acre, and that's applied through the state. And they will do that, but I would like to see Planning Commission, if they do approve, it's contingent upon the notice of intent permit to be applied for and issued to Menards. And then the other one is dealing with the wetland, disturbing the wetland. It's called a nationwide permit. And again, they don't have a choice. They have to apply based on the state requirements and stuff. But that should be contingent, one of the contingencies for Planning Commission's approval if they decide to approve the project. And then obviously the third contingency is city council granting the variance.
I'm sorry, just run through those again then. So it's 2 permits and.
Yeah,
and the
there's
city
an
council?
NOI, notice of intent.
Yep.
And then a nationwide permit, which deals with the wetlands.
Yep.
And then the third one is city council granting a variance.
Is there a condition, you had mentioned the water well earlier, the need for that well. Is that have to be approved through council, or how does that come into play?
Our ordinance does state that there will be no drinking water wells drilled, but this isn't a drinking water well. This is for manufacturing. And there are a couple of those. In fact, I think the building that they're purchasing may have had one at one time. But I think they also eliminated it. I could be wrong on that, but
Well, and I know there was a well on the Hudson property because I saw them dig it.
okay.
With that. And with the use that we're talking about, and there's an understanding why they need it. These blocks that you built, your retention areas for landscaping and those sorts of things, they have to all look alike. And be in a tone that the public's interested in buying. Probably not too much use for orange ones with that, but I assume, Nick, you're on top of the 2. I think 2 of those we have no control over. The wetlands and what was the other one?
Notice of intent.
Oh, notice of intent.
Yep, I understand both of that. The NOI is pretty standard. We apply for those for all the projects that we do throughout the state of Ohio. So there's really no concern on my side for that one. The nationwide permit, we actually did submit that application last week. We are hoping to get that permit here in the middle of August. Might be the last thing that we get before we wrap this project up. But it's half acre of very, very low quality wetlands. I don't anticipate any issues getting that permit either.
City, of course, is looking forward to having you out there as part of our community. And we will be, on our part, taking the issues to council in an expedient fashion so that we know where we're going with this.
Nick, have you drilled a test well on this property to determine if you have the volume that you need?
We have not. We don't typically do that. I mean, we've done some soil borings, but that's different. We usually don't do the test borings for the water well until we're about ready to start drilling them. Just typically what we do. And, we generally know the area well enough to know that we shouldn't have any issues with it.
Anyone else have any more questions for Nick at this time? If there are none, at this point in time, then we would entertain a motion to go ahead with the project, approving the site plan with the contingencies that Mr. Finney has mentioned, and that's getting the 2 permits in council. So if we could have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Frank Seaman,
Yes.
Kay Davisky,
Yes.
Josh Smith,
Yes.
Bill Barber,
Yes.
Larry Selenian,
Yes.
Mark Hairston,
Yes.
Okay, this part you're through with.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate it, everyone. I know everyone's going through a heck of a time now, and I think the fact that we continue to push forward shows you how much the company wants to be here in Ravenna, and we appreciate the fact that you guys want us here too. It means a lot to the company and the Menard family.
We've made what we've seen so far, and there's a lot of people looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point in time, is there any old business to come before the group? See you all. All right, if there is none, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're done. Thank you.
What's that?